Ante, papastim tzikasun. So Whitehorse here again, and today we were blessed with a bountiful harvest of muskwa, and today we're going to be learning about fall harvest of muskwa. But with the fall with muskwa, we usually only traditionally we hunt them in the fall for a particular reason, and that's because during the summer months and getting on towards fall, in the colder months, muskwa, they really go into hyperactive feeding. So they really start feeding and they start getting nice and fat and building up that fat for the winter months. So they're at their fattest right now. And with the fat from muskwa, it's used in a lot of different muskiki, a lot of different medicines, and in the fall we usually like to get at least one bear just to harvest specifically for the fat for muskiki. Now with the meat, not a lot of people eat the meat from muskwa in the fall, and that's because they're so fat, and the fat makes the meat extra rich, so it's really rich, right to the point that it's so much fatty meat in there that you can eat very little without getting sick. So we'll take a little bit of meat from this one just to try and harvest whatever we can and as much as we can. But the main thing we're going to be harvesting is we're going to be taking the hide, of course, because that's good any time of the year. We still use it for a lot of things, making clothing and such, and even the claws, we use a lot of that for ceremonial purposes, or some like to make regalias out of them. So we're going to skin this bear no different than we would skin it if it was a spring bear when the fur is at its primest. We still use this because this can be used as a nice rug, even for a lot of the elders. They always used to pack the rug from muskwa for camping, because this is a nice insulation here, and it's going to keep you nice and dry, and it doesn't get moisture on it because of the way the fur is designed on muskwa. So we're going to harvest the hide, all the fat we can get off of this. Of course, the paws and everything will come with the hide, and we'll be taking some of the meat from here. But again, the majority of what we're taking is going to be the fat, especially because that's used for a lot of different medicines and medicine mixtures. But before we go about that, as always, we always need to give thanks in a good way. Even if we're not spiritual or religious or anything like that, we still need to build within us that appreciation for nature and what nature provides for us. Because without the things we get from nature to sustain us, we wouldn't survive. And this is a big part of our survival, especially with like the medicines we do get from it. It helps in healing. So we want to be especially thankful to muskwa for the gift that he has given us. So as always, we give thanks before we begin, just out of respect for muskwa, out of respect for nature, and to build that appreciation for nature. So how simantu pinanaskumtin hawa muskwa nenaskamun hawa maskiki nenaskamun hawa mitsun nenaskamun hawa musom muskwa pinanaskumtin hawa maskiki hawa musom na naknukum na naktapanana nenaskamau kahkiao hamagiwan hawa pinanaskumtin kahkiao. So I just thank the Creator for the gift of this bear, And of course, I thanked the bear for his sacrifice to give me medicines and to give me food and whatever I need from it. And I thanked all of my ancestors for all of the teachings. So as always, it's my way, so I put down tobacco in honor of my grandfather, Bear, or Mosom Masqua. So now we can go about harvesting whatever we can. So we're going to begin, like I said, by skinning it and taking all of the hide off of it. So with Masqua, when we're skinning it, we always start right at the top of the jaw, unless if we're planning on taking it to a taxidermist. Taxidermists appreciate always if you just start just below the jawline with your first cut and just leaving the head intact by itself, because the majority of taxidermists they like to do the head themselves, because there's special ways to skin out the head on these where you're not messing it up, and because often when people skin it, they end up cutting off some skin that they should have, or cutting off some cartilage that they should have left on, or leaving a lot of meat on there that taxidermists really don't like. So if you're planning on getting it professionally done, start below the jawline with a cut to make your line for when you're skinning. Otherwise, for me, because I'm going to be using it for myself, I just cut it right from the jaw. So right from the lip, and I'm just going to make a line all the way down, and I'm careful, I'm just cutting the skin, not into the meat. Otherwise I might burst something and make a mess that I don't want to make. So I'm just making a line all the way down, straight from the jaw, right to the tail. So I've nearly got my line right down from the jaw all the way to the tail. So we can see here. Now what I'm going to do is on each side of this, I'm going to carefully begin skinning the fur away. Now I want to be very careful here, because the skin itself is actually very thin and it's easy to cut a hole through. So you just want to go very slowly. Remember, there's no race, there's no contest, so take your time. Just to begin it and start that. Once I get this first line cut out and start to skin it, it gets a little easier. But it's always that first part that you got to be very careful for, that you don't cut through the hide. And if you're leaving some of the meat on there, don't worry about it because you can flesh that off later with either with a knife or a flesher. Now from the front paws, I'm going to be making a line right from below the paw right to the armpit, and then back to this right at the bridge of the chest plate here. So again, just a line through the skin and the hide, and I don't want to be cutting too deep again there. So once I've got that line there too, I can start skinning out toward the leg here, around the front leg. Often, especially if you're in the bush, you may be rushed, and that's perfectly fine. Like if say it's late in the day and you need to get it done, don't worry about what we call rough skinning and just leaving, being sure not to cut through the hide and leaving meat here and there. That's fine because that can be fleshed off later. Now another thing with musqua, with the meat from it, a lot of people don't care to eat it because we're taught that with any carnivore, we got to be very careful and make sure we know what we're doing when we're cooking it, because with carnivores, because they're eating rotted meat and carrion and all of that stuff, they tend to pick up a lot of parasites, especially stuff like ringworm, stomach worms, heartworm. So they do pick up a lot of parasites because of the things they're eating. So we got to be very careful that we cook it properly. So it's not just because the meat itself is really rich, and as with any rich food, if you eat too much it gets you sick, but you can also get stuff like ringworm and stomach worm and all sorts of different parasites. So if you are eating them, make sure you cook them really well, so well done, and not definitely not medium rare or anything like that, because you do run the risk of getting those parasites yourself. So I just continue on like this, and you'll see that I'm just carefully taking the skin, and I gotta do that until I'm finished the whole animal. I'll just show you with the back foot here too. So with the back foot I go right to the heel and I follow this. You can see the line where the hair gets thicker, and I just follow that along the inside of the leg right to the tail, and that's where I make my line. So right from the heel. And right to the tail. And then just like the front leg, I just start skinning the fur away from the animal. Alright, so we finished skinning the bear. We've removed all of the skin from this musqua. You'll see on the legs here that I've just skinned up to the feet, and then I've just cut the feet off on there. That's because I want to take a little bit of time later to skin these out proper. Because of all the bones and stuff to go around, it takes a lot of time. So I just leave them on when I'm rough skinning it, and I skin them out later so I can do a nice slow job on them and get everything off of there. But the primary reason that we harvested this bear is to get the muskegee from it, or the medicine, which is of course the fat, so we can make bear grease out of it. So of course, before we can make bear grease, we've got to take off as much fat off of this carcass as we can. So we begin by finding where the backbone is and feeling along there. And I'm just going to make a cut along the backbone right to the spine. And you'll see all of that fat in there. Now that's what I want, is all of this fat, as much as I can get. Then I'm going to go make a line. You can see it was shot here, so I don't want that clot or anything in there. It'll discolor my bear grease. So I've made my line. Now from the stomach I'm going to go cut in there, and there's really no special way to do it. You just want to get off as much of the fat as you can from this animal. Harvest as much of it as we can, and if you get some meat with it, that's fine. Because later when we make the bear grease, I'll show you what happens when we start to make it into bear grease. So just like taking the fur off, now I'm just sort of skinning the fat off. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you get meat in there, because we'll show you what happens with that later on. But I want mainly fat for when I take the fat for rendering. And I get right back to my cut that I initially made along the spine. So you'll see that's mainly fat there. That's what I need. As much of the fat as I can. Like even stuff like this, I can still go back later and cut off the fatty parts and get as much of that fat as I can possibly get. Now with this with this bear, like I said, we harvested it mainly to get the medicine and make the bear fat from it. but we're still going to be taking meat from it. But remember I said you can see the way the meat looks here. It's really dark and it's really super shiny. That means it's super rich. It's really infused with fat in there, and that's you can't eat very much of it because of how rich and fatty it is. Like I said, if you eat too much of that, it just gets you sick. You can eat very little at a time, and even then preparing it is hard because you still get that sort of taste from them, just because right now just the wide range of stuff they're eating. With Musqua, they're generally like to eat grasses and berries and all, not a whole lot of meat. However, when it comes to fall, they really go into high gear and they'll eat absolutely anything at all. So any rotted meat and stuff like that, they don't care. They'll eat that as well. But generally throughout the year, they stick to the grasses and the berries and all of those plants. So again here, like I said, we'll take probably, especially the quarters we'll take, just because the meat in there it's thicker, so it's not going to be quite as rich as these where the meat isn't that thick. Because these ones you can see where it's super shiny and super rich. Alright, so all we do now is we flip the bear over and we do the same thing to the other side, taking the most fattiest parts, collecting this fat. I'm just going to put my fat on the bag here so I don't get it all dirty. And then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to get some more fat out of there, try and get as much as I can. Alright, so we've taken off all the fat that we can possibly get off, where there's not a lot of meat, and you'll see I've actually got a fair bit of bear fat there now to make my bear grease with, and I'm really pleased with how much we got, because that's going to be enough to last me for the season. Now with whatever's left here, like I said, we're going to do the hide. We're going to take the hind quarters and the front quarters, and that's probably about all we're going to take from this bear, which is still a great deal of what we can take from this bear, because we want to leave as little waste as possible, just because it's a good hunting practice and it's a good way to honor the animals. So we're going to, like I said, hind quarters, front quarters, and the rest, just because of how rich and fat they are right now, and they're really not good for eating when they're super fat like this. So just the quarters where the bigger meat is, it's not going to be quite as rich. Still going to be rich, and you're still not going to eat be able to eat very much, but you can still eat it. But remember, when you're eating bear or any carnivore, it needs to be cooked so it's well done. Absolutely not medium rare, or you may be susceptible to the ringworm or the stomach worms or the heart worms and any of the other parasites that Musqua does carry. But that's it for now. Join me at the next section where I'm going to be showing you how to make bear grease out of the bear fat that we just harvested. Samaga.